Good morning, everybody. I'm not sure exactly what time it is. It may be morning or it may be afternoon. My name is Nina Perales. I'm the Vice President of Litigation with Maldef, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund. I am the attorney for 22 DACA recipients who live around the United States, including with me today, Carla Perez, who's going to offer some remarks. I'm also here with my co-counsel, Mr. Doug Hallward-Driemeier, with the law firm of Ropes & Gray, who is cooperating with us. We are litigating the legality of DACA. The 22 DACA recipients have been allowed to come into this case to be able to present their voices and their stories and to explain how vitally important it is for DACA recipients to be able to maintain their DACA and why the DACA initiative itself is legal. Today, we had an opportunity to present our arguments to Judge Hainan, who is going to take these arguments under advisement. He did not issue a ruling today on the plaintiff's request to enjoin or to temporarily halt DACA. So the situation as we have it is that the judge is going to consider the arguments. He is going to issue a ruling in the future. He has asked us for additional briefs, which we are going to file with him on Monday of next week. He is not going to issue a final ruling in this case. He did say that, but his ruling will be a temporary one, and it will come sometime after next Monday. The situation today is as it was yesterday, and it will be the same situation tomorrow. DACA is in effect. If people have DACA and they want to be able to renew their DACA, they can send in their applications. And DACA is in full effect today for anybody who is receiving it and wants to be able to renew it. I'd like to have my co-counsel, Mr. Hallward-Driemeier, give a remark or two before we move on to Alejandra Avila, who is also with Maldef, and Carla Perez, who is herself a recipient of DACA.
Just briefly on behalf of Ropes & Gray, I want to say what an honor and privilege it is to work with Nina and the Maldef team to represent these wonderful individuals. As Nina says, this case is really about the individuals who have been in the United States in many instances virtually their entire lives. This is the country that they know as home, and this case is about continuing that security that they have to live meaningful, productive lives among us is something that we believe that we all benefit from. And so, without further ado, I think it's important that you hear from some of those individuals themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carla Perez. I'm a recent law school graduate, and I'm also proud to be one of the 22 Perez defendant interveners represented by Maldef in this case. DACA has not only allowed me to remain in the country that I have called home since I was 2 years old, it has allowed me to thrive. After becoming a DACA beneficiary in 2012, I became involved in immigrant rights advocacy and worked with immigrant legal services providers as well. I quickly found my passion for working with immigrant women who were survivors of gender-based violence and learned as much as I could about how to represent them before attending law school. I've met many other DACA recipients, students, parents, workers, teachers who have thrived with DACA, just like I have. I graduated from the University of Houston in 2015, and thanks to DACA, I was able to start law school without fear of deportation hanging over me. This fall, I will start a prestigious fellowship that will enable me to live out my dream of representing immigrant women and girls who are survivors of gender-based violence. Without DACA, I would lose the ability to practice law as a public interest immigration attorney, as has been a dream since I was a child. I joined this case because we, as DACA recipients, have a direct and personal stake in its outcome. I know all too well that we cannot count on the Trump administration, who attempted to end DACA last September, to defend DACA. As the arguments were laid out today, this case could not be about us without us. This case could not be between two sweetheart adversaries, the state of Texas and the Trump administration, who are opposed to DACA. It's unfortunate that my home state of Texas has yet again targeted an initiative that is well supported and that has had a positive impact on this country. I look forward to continuing to participate in this case, and I'm proud of my fellow defendant interveners as well as those thousands of DACA recipients and their communities for presenting their experiences as DACA recipients in this case in light of what is at stake. For those that have DACA, we will continue to fight in the courts. We will continue to fight however we can, and I look forward to being a part of that.
Can you repeat shortly in Spanish, just a shorter version?
Yes. En español. Me llamo Carla Pérez y soy una recién graduada de la Facultad de Derecho de la Universidad de Houston. Soy una de las intervinientes representadas por Maldef, y DACA no solamente me ha ayudado a permanecer en el país, al cual yo he llamado hogar desde que he sido chica, me ha ayudado a desarrollarme profesionalmente y como una persona sin miedo. He conocido a muchos otros recipientes de DACA desde que me hice beneficiaria de DACA, que también han desarrollado y han crecido, ya sea como padres, como trabajadores, como estudiantes, y es tan importante para ellos como para mí que se continúe el programa de DACA, que continuemos a defender DACA, ya que con DACA podemos ejercer, podemos vivir con nuestras familias sin miedo, y podemos continuar a apoyar a nuestros seres queridos mientras seamos beneficiarios de DACA. Yo creo que sería una pregunta mejor para una de las abogadas.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Alejandra Ávila, yo soy una abogada con Maldef. El día de hoy el juez Heinen consideró los varios argumentos que hemos presentado ya en este caso durante todo el verano. Nosotros representamos 22 individuos que, como escucharon el día de hoy, pertenecen a nuestras comunidades y contribuyen a nuestra economía. Esos argumentos fueron presentados y serán considerados por el juez, el cual no emitió un fallo el día de hoy, pero se espera o se anticipa que presente un nuevo fallo después del lunes. El día de hoy la situación continúa siendo la misma como estaba el día de ayer. Los participantes de DACA que reciben DACA pueden continuar renovando sus permisos hasta saber cuál va a ser el fallo del juez la próxima semana. Gracias.
Oh, I'm 25.
And you live here in Houston?
Yes.
And where are you from originally?
Mexico City.
Yes.
Can you explain the significance of Judge Haynen's request for that brief, that one specific brief on discretion, and whether or not that would still violate the Administrative Procedure Act?
We have a lot of different issues that the judge is considering in this case. Texas has advanced a number of different legal theories for why it says that DACA is not legal. And the judge was asking the attorneys during the hearing different questions that related to those different legal theories. And at the end, he asked each side to submit an additional 5-page argument on the question whether DACA is illegal because the administration should have done more to set it into regulation before it was implemented in 2012. And so the specific question that the judge was asking about had to do with whether DACA had to be accompanied by more than memoranda from the administration back in 2012, but whether it also should have been accompanied by regulations. And so that was the judge's question, one among many that we heard today. I'd like to add that in addition to the legality of DACA, one of the more important topics of today's hearing was whether Texas is suffering any kind of injury whatsoever from having DACA recipients living and working in the state. Texas was not able to point to evidence that DACA recipients are costing the state anything. And in fact, the evidence in the case is that by being able to work and live and participate in civic society and the economy, that Texas overall is better off with DACA recipients.
It seemed like a lot of the discussion and questions from the judge today were in some way comparing to the previous case that he had and the other that he had in 2013. How would you evaluate the comparisons that were made today? And given that Judge Hayden in that case issued an injunction against DACA and expanded DACA, how would you evaluate the focus of
Judge Haynen does ask a lot of questions about a previous initiative of the Obama administration known as DAPA with a P. He ruled on that case before, and he found that DAPA was not legal, and that decision was affirmed by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And so because Judge Haynen has that separate initiative in his mind, and because he did rule in a separate case, many of the discussions that we had today with Judge Haynen were about how DACA with a C is different than DAPA with a P, including the fact that DACA affects a much smaller number of people. Specifically, there are 702,000 individuals in the United States today with DACA, and also how DACA fits within the overall scheme of immigration law.
En español nos podría explicar las preguntas que tienen sobre ese escrito que tienen que entregar.
Sí, buenas tardes. El escrito que tenemos que entregar es un argumento solamente de sobre si DACA fue promulgado con los suficientes procesos que debió haberse promulgado en el 2012. Es un escrito que tenemos que entregar solamente de 5 páginas que se entregará para el lunes de la próxima semana.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Why specifically the number of people is so important to your argument that it's different than DACA?
One of the arguments about any kind of deferred action initiative, like what we're seeing today, Texas is saying that it's inappropriate for the federal government to acknowledge that people live in the United States and to make a decision, an affirmative decision, not to place certain individuals in removal proceedings. It is our contention that Congress authorized DHS not only to put people into removal proceedings, but also to acknowledge and set certain people aside and say, as the government, we are going to not put a particular group of individuals into removal proceedings, but instead acknowledge their presence and allow them to work and live temporarily in the United States. And so the scale of that decision, which is referred to as deferred action, and which has been around for several decades and has been used by many administrations before, the question is whether the scale of DACA fits in this context of previous administrations allowing people to live and work in the United States through deferred action.
Were you encouraged
Yes.
by today's proceedings?
Hold on, I'm sorry.
Advanced parole is interplaying with DACA.
It is definitely the case that in the United States, certain people who are here who need permission to exit and re-enter because of urgent reasons are granted that permission. That is part of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Texas has seized on something which is called advanced parole, and which is a very regular feature of the immigration system. Texas has pointed to advanced parole as something that shows a flaw in DACA, and we of course were arguing today that advanced parole has been around for a very long time, and it doesn't represent a flaw either in the immigration system or within DACA.
Were you encouraged by today's proceedings?
I was very encouraged by today's proceedings. The judge was very patient. He allowed each side to get up and make its arguments, and he allowed us to make our arguments that both DACA is legal, it is appropriate, it is commensurate with the immigration authority granted by Congress, and that Texas and the other states are not truly injured by DACA. And I was also encouraged by the judge's curiosity and interest in additional questions, which he has asked us to brief for him next week. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kabir Graywal. I'm the Attorney General for the state of New Jersey. New Jersey is a defendant intervener in this case. I spent about 3.5 hours upstairs listening to a lot of great arguments by a lot of great attorneys. And I think one thing that got lost in some of those arguments from the state of Texas's lawyers and from the federal defendants' lawyers is really the human side of what we're dealing with. What got lost is that 6 years ago, we invited dreamers to come out of the shadows. We told them that if you met certain criteria, and if we were able to exercise our discretion in your case, that you too could live the promise of some form of the American dream for some period of time. And for many of those individuals who came out of the shadows, this country was really the only country that they had ever called home. And for the last 6 years, the state of Texas did nothing. And hundreds of thousands of people took advantage of DACA. And hundreds of thousands of people came out of the shadows to live their lives, to go to school, to work. And Texas did nothing, while at the same time they filed actions against the Obama administration in other areas. And then suddenly, 4 months ago, the state of Texas decided that the DACA program somehow violated the rule of law now 6 years later. That somehow it was necessary to come into this courthouse behind me for emergent relief. Somehow it was necessary to have DACA declared unlawful right now and to make hundreds of thousands of individuals, DACA recipients, subject to deportation. And one would think that the federal government would stand up and defend this case. But what we saw upstairs and what we've seen over the last number of weeks in this case and other DACA challenges across the country is that the federal government has stood down on these cases. And as I've said before, when the federal government stands down, New Jersey stands up. We stand up not just for our 17,000 DACA recipients in our state, we stand up for all DACA recipients throughout the country. And so I thought it was very important for me to get on a plane this morning to travel down to Texas to let our attorneys who argued this matter today, Rachel Apter to my right and Ken Levine behind me, to let them know that I have their back, and to let all DACA recipients in this country and in the state of New Jersey know that we have their backs as well. That's why we're here, and I couldn't be more proud. And I want to thank Judge Hainan for his incredible patience upstairs. As was alluded to before, he was incredibly well prepared, well versed in all the briefs that were presented to the court, including hundreds of amicus parties who came forward to participate in briefs that were presented to the court. And I'm encouraged that he'll arrive at the same decision that other courts have come to when it comes to protecting our DACA recipients. One thing I want to add about the litigation before I close is that, again, as I started, let's not lose sight of the humanity here. Let's not lose sight of the fact that thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives hang in the balance of the court's decision upstairs. Let's not lose sight of the fact that DACA recipients are our neighbors. They pray with us, they go to school with us, they work with us. And if we don't stand up for them now, who will? And that's why New Jersey intervened in this case, because the federal government stood down. We will stand up. I can't be more proud of the team that we have here. I can't be more proud of what the Office of the Attorney General in New Jersey has done in this case and in other cases. And I'm hopeful that the judge, based on his questioning, based on the additional briefing, will come to a decision that will protect the rights of our DACA recipients, that the program will continue, that future DACA recipients and current DACA recipients will enjoy some form of the promise of the American dream for the time to come. Thank you so much. I don't know if you have any questions. We could take a couple of questions before we leave and catch our flights home. G-U-R-B-I-R, last name Grewal, G-R-E-W-A-L. Thank you so much.